Welcome to the Off Good Ireland podcast. In this episode, we speak with Philip Dwyer, Welsh Nationalist, and Chief Moody. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really matters to try and get these podcasts out to the most amount of people. Thank you, folks, for all your support. All right, lads. Thanks for coming on, lads, and welcome to Off Good Ireland. I'm your host, I suppose. Gavin's my name. I'll just give you, just for the recording, we'll get you to give a brief introduction each. Most of the, maybe it's good to share audience because a lot of people maybe on the stream tonight might know who yourselves are, and everyone knows who Philip is. Talk, we all know who Philip is. So well, I'll just kick it off there. Philip, you could give just the two seconds there about yourself, and then we'll let the lads and we'll kick it off from there.
Oh God, 2 seconds. Yeah, I'll make this short and sweet. Yeah, Philip Dwyer is my name. Just an Irish man. Woke up to what was going on. Maybe properly woke up 6 or 7 years ago. Probably always had a bit of disdain for politicians and so in the political system and mistrust and that. Got helped to be woken up by my sons, three great sons, and started to look into what was going on and was appalled to see how much lies and deceit was going on within government and media and corporations and stuff. So got involved with a political party, the National Party. Was asked to ran for election in 2020. Started to do some YouTube streaming with critiqued another great broadcaster who knows what's going on. He's well briefed about what's happening, and kind of started doing my own YouTube stuff after that, and citizen journalism, and it was blatantly obvious as well in Ireland, especially, and I suppose everywhere in Western civilization, that there's no real journalists out there asking hard questions of politicians anymore. So I just felt it was the right thing to do, and started my channel. So I'm still on YouTube, just about. So I have a Telegram channel, and I'm on Odyssey and Bitchute and that. So on under Philip Dwyer. So that's about it. Sorry for taking up too much time on that one.
I know you're grand, Jenny. You're very modest. You're doing great. So, Welsh Nationalist, do you want to go there next? Give a bit of a rundown on yourself.
Yeah, well, my name's Joe Marsh. I've got a channel. I've only just started it on Telegram called Welsh Nationalist. And like, if you live in Wales and you tell people that you're a Welsh nationalist, they think you're one of these freaks, right? They call themselves nationalists, and all they do is they hate the English, but they're quite happy to flood our towns and cities with the third world. So they're not nationalists. That's why I'm reclaiming that word from them, And I've been around a long time. I was in the BNP when I was young, and I've been in various groups and that. And like within the last year, I've started doing streams and that. And I've just started one of my own. I just go on other people's streams. I've just started my own one, and we've done it twice now. And it's basically, a lot of the people who have been nationalists here over the years have just given up now. And it's not as if things have got any better. They've got much, much worse. And a lot of people are just like giving up, surrendering, but I can't do that. So here I am carrying on, trying to spread the word.
Good stuff, good stuff. And yourself there, Chief Moody.
Right. Well, I'll keep it short and sweet as well. So, thanks for having me on. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephen, although people would know me more online as Chief Moody. I've been a nationalist content creator ever since 2018, although I did start back more like a civic nationalist until around about, say, summer of 2020, when the whole BLM riots that happened, and of course the debate between Laura Taylor and Ricky Doolan. Those were like the major red pulling moments for me, where instead of becoming a civic nationalist, I decided I'm just going to go full board with ethno nationalism, because I think that's the way to save the West at this point. And even with that, I've been following a lot of people online, such as people like, of course, trying to, not any like drama or anything like that at all, but many people I did support in the past, like Count Dankula, Sargon Bakad, and so on and so forth. The problem I had with the civic nationalist side of things were that they tend to talk about the problems, but never seem to provide any solutions to those problems. And for me, at that point, I just got really sick and tired of it. So I had to look at ethno-nationalism. I had to look into groups like nationalist groups, like in this case, Patriotic Alternative, and I just thought to myself, like, yeah, they seem to be a group, in my opinion, that has the answers to the problems we're facing just now, having proper solutions. And I've decided, you know what, I'm going to join this group, and I'm actually going to go out and do some activism, and that then doing content throughout that time. And of course, I've got my own podcast called Moody the Nation, which hosts or streams 2 days per week. And yeah, it's been pretty good so far. So looking forward to this overall conversation.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, it's great to be able to bring a few people together from different countries and around the place that are like-minded, that have a lot in common, and I suppose could share ideas like and what works well and what isn't working so well. Um, I suppose we could kick it off there. I suppose Philip has a good bit of experience. He's been doing great stuff with the Ireland First movement. Do you want to talk about that for a couple of minutes, Philip? Maybe tell the lads about what you're trying to achieve with Eric and that.
Yeah, well, I'm involved with Derek for a while. First of all, through the Men of Ireland Trek, and it's been Derek's kind of brainchild now to start this movement, Ireland First, and this political party. And I suppose, what we're trying to do, and you'll hear people on our side, on the nationalist side or whatever you want to call it. I kind of try to call it the common sense side, like basically to me, nationalism is just using your common sense and protecting your identity and your nation. Um, and so Derek decided we needed to start this, and there are people on our side, as I was saying, that like are very kind of disillusioned with politics, and a lot of people feel that there's no political solution to what's happening to our country at the moment. I think our view on that is that there has to be a political solution because the alternative isn't really it's not worth thinking about. I don't really want to have to think about that, and we're trying to probably prevent something terrible happening to the country, like even more terrible happening to the country. So and it basically stems from like what the lads are saying, what's happening to their countries. Our country is being absolutely devastated from every angle. Demographic, demographic, demographically, hard to say that one. Economically, culturally, spiritually. Um, Christianity wise, it's been attacked and being belittled, and it's people now are getting sick and tired of it, I think. And Ireland First are exactly what we say in the tin, no apologies. We want to put Irish people first in their own country. It shouldn't be controversial, And as it's the National Party slogan was Ireland belongs to the Irish, Wales belongs to the Welsh, England belongs to the English, and that's the way it should be. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, and so, yeah, Derek, and we want to be ready as well. I mean, for a possible general election that could come up fairly soon. I think with the balance of the TDs in the Dáil right now, it'll only take one TD to resign or leave a seat in the Dáil to upset the balance of power, which might trigger a general election. So we want to be there to give the people an option to vote for a nationalist candidate and the national idea, because like we see in Ireland today, there isn't any proper nationalist parties in government or in the Dáil. And I think there's an appetite for it. And from running in the election in 2020, all the doors, practically all the doors, I would say 90 to 95% of the doors I knocked on, and these just ordinary people I spoke to, loved our message, the nationalist idea, and they were there was a real kind of hunger for it, But the problem is, it's not allowed to be discussed anymore. The other opposition parties All the parties actually in the Dáil made an agreement that they were not to discuss immigration at the doorsteps during the general election, which is kind of unprecedented. So yeah, I mean it started. It's at its infancy, and we've got a great response from people so far. We've got more members than we would have expected in such a short space of time. We're working on the the constitution, and all of that stuff has to take its time. That has to be done properly, and it's not going to be rushed into. But yeah, and we've got some fantastic people on board, and we're going to try and do it the right way. And we just feel now that Ireland deserves, a good, proper, honest to goodness Irish nationalist party with a bit of integrity and a bit of common sense. As I said, to me, nationalism is just common sense and protecting who you are, protecting where you live, and sticking up for your culture, your heritage.
Yeah, this is it. I think a lot of people are beginning to appreciate it. Like, what's the answer to the globalism? It has to be nationalism, to stop these globalists.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back to the lads, anything on the horizons in the UK? Is there any hopes of something to unsettle the order of the day over there? Is Nigel Farage coming up with something, or is there anything for the UK nationalists to look forward to? Leave that up to Welsh nationalists first there.
Well, see that Nigel Farage, right? I'm pretty sure that he's been paid off not to stand in an election because he built UKIP up. And like we used to go leafleting, God, years ago, maybe 15 years ago when he first started. My mate came home and said, "Oh, there's this new group called UKIP, and he wanted to do some leafleting." And he built that up massively. Farage did, and then he just basically threw it all away. And every time, and it's like the Brexit party as well. Every time it looks like he could get into power, he just walks away. And I was watching a live stream with him during the COVID, and he came up with some absolute. Honestly, he was sat there saying Tony Blair should be the vaccine minister, and like everybody in the chat was going mad, saying, "Have you lost your mind, Nigel?" And I'm pretty sure he's been paid off not to ever stand to be prime minister, because I think he could do it if he went for it. Especially now, if he was to say, "I've had enough of this, I'm going for it," but he never does. He just doesn't do it. So I think he's either part of it, or he's been paid off, or he's been threatened and paid off. I don't think he'll ever do it. There's another party now which is like something to do with him called Reform, and they say they're standing people in every area for elections. I'd vote for them. PA, who I'm an activist for now, they're trying to register as a political party, and they're just being told no all the time. And it's basically they're just stopping us from becoming a political party. But this Reform Party, I would vote for them, but like they seem to be like all they're interested in is illegal immigration. And it's like the legal immigration is much, much bigger. And it's just like these people, they think that they can just talk about illegals, and that's like a safe way of doing it without being called racist. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're all illegal because we've not mandated it. We've not voted to have our country flooded with foreigners. So not a single one of them is legal as far as I'm concerned. But like this Reform Party say they're standing candidates all over the country. I'll vote for them because there's no one else to vote for. I'd vote for a chimp in a suit if they told me they're going to stop immigration and start sending people back. But that's the way I look. That's about the only chance we've got, really, at the moment.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? It's unreal. Do you want to comment on that there, Chief Moody?
Yeah, I would just to add on to that in terms of people like Nigel Farage or the Reform Party. The problem with people like Nigel Farage or anyone of his ilk is that to me they just come across as gatekeepers. See, they will talk, as I said earlier on, they'll talk about the problems, but they'll never really want to produce any basic solutions to those problems. It's almost like, again, this is just my opinion about this, but it just kind of almost comes off to me as if like they want the problems to continue onwards and not have them be solved or anything like that at all. So that's my major problem with people like Nigel Farage or anyone of his ilk. And that's why, for me, I pretty much became a nationalist to begin with, because I think nationalism, whether you want to call it ethno-nationalism or anything like that at all, at least as Philip said earlier on, it does come off more as like a common sense worldview. And using that, I think is a very a perfect example of actually presenting a solution to the problem rather than just keep constantly talking about the problem. And I think when it comes to paperwork alternative, as Joe pointed out, we're trying our damnedest to get registered as a political party, but we've tried it multiple times where we keep getting rejected. And the reasons why they keep rejecting it are just the most ludicrous reasons like possible. For example, I believe, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong saying this, but I believe they turned in their form just so it can get possibly registered, and they got rejected because of the logo design, like the tick was too big or something to that effect. It was just something that was just so just ridiculous as that. And I think the reason why the Electoral Commission don't want PA to be registered as a political party is because of national groups like in the past, like the BNP. Now, say what you want about the BNP, but the BNP for a long while, back in those times, were actually a pretty big political party. Maybe not as big as some of the mainstream parties like Labour or Tories or anything like that at all, but there was a point in time where they were becoming a lot bigger than they are nowadays. And I think because of that, the Electoral Commission are just desperate to not let that happen again, which is why they'll do everything they can to stop PA from becoming a registered political party.
Do you foresee many hurdles with register in Ireland first, Philip, or do you think it should go pretty smooth, or what do you think?
Well, I don't want to. I don't. What the registration that, like, according to there, I'm not involved heavily in that end of it. I'm involved in the party to support Derek and all the members and push it along. But for that part of it, I'm understanding that it's been made as difficult as possible here in Ireland. The thoughts of nationalism growing in it terrifies the establishment. So it's in the process now. I think Derek now has done a lot of work with Sarah behind the scenes, and they're trying their best to overcome the hurdles that have been put in their way. But as far as Derek is concerned, we're very close to. We had a meeting last week with the auditor, and everything went smoothly with that. So yeah, that's as much now as I'm aware of now within the registration process. But it is being made very difficult over here to register.
Yeah, they are terrified at the national idea. I thought it was hilarious this week. RT ran a story about using the word plantation, and we've been using that here in the Telegram group for ages. But the language we use is powerful as well. So, and did you see that article, Philip?
Yeah, I did, and it's fascinating, isn't it, that RTE are starting now to address some of our talking points, whereas before, like they're going through them now with a fine tooth comb, and then they're getting their information from like people who I would regard as radicals, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue and people like that, people of that ilk who are do nothing all day. They're paid to do nothing all day, only to um, destroy nationalism or destroy the opposition view, to trying to debunk what we're trying to say, debunk the truth, basically. Like, that's all we're trying to put out there. We're trying to put out truth and common sense, reality, you know. And it is fascinating. It's so blatantly obvious that they are running very scared. And there's somebody up there in the higher echelons of RTE, the Rory Coveney's, the Simon Coveney, Minister for Foreign Affairs, his brother, is head of strategy. And I'm sure like he has his little puppets, his little minions running around now frantic to try to quell these voices now that are becoming more popular. It's very obvious now that our message seems to be getting out there, and the average person on the street now is starting to say, hold on, this is gone batshit crazy now. We have to do this, has to stop. Um, but the problem I suppose we have on our side is that we don't have the massive apparatus, media apparatus that they have, the control and the finances, the NGOs. We just don't have any of that. So it's an uphill struggle. I think inch by inch we're gaining ground. And I think the key then is to never give an inch, never give back an inch, especially, and I'd urge all the people in East Wall, all the people here in Cookstown, places like Kill, Fermoy, Mahon, nobody should give an inch to these politicians. Do not even negotiate with them. You just give your demand and you want your demand met. Simple as, or else we will start to do our protests. We'll start a blockade. And it's very simple to me. These people that who are responsible for bringing in our whole establishment, our whole political class, are fanatical about bringing in as many migrants into this country as possible, legal, as the chap said earlier, or illegal. It doesn't matter. They just want replacement level migrations, and it's probably primarily down to cheap labor, and then the voting demographic that they probably think that these people will vote. And you have to laugh where you have the likes of Roderick O'Gorman, who's bringing in these men from the Middle East and Africa. A huge portion of these people will quite happily, when they get into power, throw him off the top of a building. It's as simple as that. That's the insanity of it, so yeah, I've seen the article, Gavin.
I
and,
thought it
and,
was
and a
hilarious.
few more, as well. Hit pieces.
But
on our
I thought it
side.
was hilarious because their fears were just projected out into the paper, like because they're basically like, oh, we don't really want to report on this, but if we don't
Mm,
report on it, and if we do report on it, we might. Looks like their
yeah,
brains were going to explode in their heads from the RT on that article.
yeah, and
Um,
they're probably trying to do a kind of a damage limitation exercise. That they're feeling that the wind is changing. Maybe you know what I mean. That the mood is changing. So a lot of them will probably want to be seen now to be unbiased, are not pro-government, are pro-regime. That they'd probably try to weasel their way, back towards, common sense and the people, and that hopefully everybody will forget what they are responsible for over the last, whatever, 10, 20, 30 years. But it won't be forgotten. They'll all be held to account as far as I'm concerned.
like most definitely, it won't be forgotten as long as most of us are alive.
Hmm.
Just to bring back to the lads, I suppose the similarity. I would say the UK are further on than Ireland. Like I found that book there. It was Dara Flaherty had recommended it there about the grooming gangs. In the UK, and I literally only found it right before we started the podcast, so I haven't even got a chance to look at it. I can't wait to read it later on. It's there on the channel if anyone wants it. But it just maybe the lads can tell us a bit about maybe some of the knock-on effects on what happens when the demographics shift, to the migrants, for want of a better word. Um, Nationalist, Welsh nationalists. Do you want to go with that one first? Just on what like the different problems that you had with the in different parts of the UK.
Well, I can tell you all about South Wales, which is where I'm from. Basically, I live near Swansea now, but I grew up in a town just outside of Cardiff, and I didn't see a black person until I was about 12 years old. And then from then it went from none of them to absolutely thousands of them in no time at all. When I was 50 and I got stabbed by blacks, they stabbed me in the side with a screwdriver. And honestly, Cardiff is absolutely chock-a-block with the dock area. It used to be called Tiger Bay years ago. People would probably heard that name. It's actually called Butte Town. And years ago, there were loads of black families there, but there were white people living down there as well. Now it is completely occupied by Somalians, and it's just so dangerous down there. Now, a social worker told me that social services will not attend down there. If there's problems with any children in that area, they just will not attend because they'd have to take so many police with them. And the police say they've not got the manpower. So they're a community which is left to its own devices. It's really literally not policed. They can do what they like down there. And it's just chock-a-block with Somalians. Then you've got other areas of Cardiff. One is called Grangetown, and I drove through there when the schools were kicking out, and honestly, it's like being in India. And this is Cardiff, and people who like English people I know, they say, no way, it's not like that down in Wales. It is, but like they just did the census thing, and they did where people identify on racial things, which is, they said, is the last one they're ever going to publish, where they cite people on the grounds of race. You've got this map of Cardiff, and you can see where people have identified as a certain race, like black or Asian or whatever, and they're all grouped into certain areas. It's like, that's the black area. That's they're not integrated. They're just ghettoized in areas. Do you know, like, I know there are random ones that live amongst white people, but most of them, they tend to all flock to one area and just basically take it over. And that's Cardiff. Now, recently, I think that they were quite happy to flood us, but it was going to be a slow drip, drip, drip thing. But since the lockdown and that, they've just flooded us. And it's just all these little Welsh villages now, because I drive around a lot with my job, and little tiny Welsh villages, Africans everywhere now. I've never seen so many in all my life, and they're just appearing overnight. And like the hotels in Cardiff, we've got like 8 hotels full of people from Afghanistan, Somalia, Albania, now Georgia as well. It's just like, they're not messing about now. They put their foot on the gas, and they're basically just flooding us, and they couldn't care less. The effect that it's going to have on like the infrastructure. We haven't got the infrastructure in Wales, just like you over in Ireland. We are, if you go to A&E, it's like at least a 3-hour wait, and that's without before all these people came. The school places, the housing. There's no social housing down here. People are waiting years. And yet they're flooding us with these people, and if there are houses available, they'll be prioritised before our people. It's honestly, the state of Wales, a lot of people would never dream it's as bad as it is, but it literally is.
Yeah, no, it sounds familiar, to be honest with you. Do you want to come in on that there, Chief Moody?
Yeah, so for people to say that like, oh, there's no such thing as like demographic changes or anything like that at all, and people who believe that, it's just a far right conspiracy theory, and those people, should check their bigotry or whatever. But I mean, for people that would make a comment like that and be 100% serious about saying that, are either completely just not fully paying attention to what exactly is going on, or lying to themselves, or they're completely disingenuous or deliberately disingenuous and are part of the problem, because you can clearly see the changes going on around the country. I mean, for me, for example, here in Scotland, where I lived, it was mainly a white majority area. I mean, sure, you'll get some like Indians or Pakistanis like here and there, but they were like literally, dare I say, a small minority. But over the years, and even I've noticed this fairly recently, maybe like a year or 2 ago, I've started noticing a bit of a change where, I mean, again, when it comes to like seeing other races, like black people, for instance, I didn't see a black person till I was about, like 13 or 14 years old. But then I keep seeing a lot more of these like Somalians keep coming into the country, especially in the major cities like Glasgow or Edinburgh. Funny enough, I was in Glasgow a few weeks back. This was like during November for Remembered Sunday. I was in a car with a friend of mine who's also part of PA Scotland. We were driving through Glasgow just to the meetup point, and I remember just thinking, like, just seeing all these other like non-whites, like black people all over, and I'm just thinking, what the hell is going on? Like, is this Glasgow or the fucking Congo? You know, I was just like, part of my language, but I was just like, you can clearly see the changes going on in the country just now. And I think it's even far worse here in Scotland. I'll just make this one last point before we move on. I just think it's a lot worse here in Scotland because politicians here in Scotland, in the Scottish Parliament, who will make points about, especially people within the SNP, will make points about, oh, if you come to Scotland, regardless if you came here legally or illegally, then at that point you're Scottish, and it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. I mean, for one thing, Scotland has always been a white country, whether they like it or not, whether they agree with that or not. Historically, culturally, and all of that speaking, Scotland has always been a white majority country, or has always been a white country. And for people like Nicola Sturgeon, Hamza Youssef, and the like, will turn around and say to people, oh, if you come here, then you're Scottish. But funny enough, they always make that point when it comes to non-whites. But if you're English and you want to move up to Scotland, then all of a sudden, oh, no, well, you're not Scottish. You're English. You're basically are just a horrible person. You need to go back to where you came from. But if you're like a non-white moving to Scotland, oh, no, you're Scottish. You're welcome here. And I just remember thinking, like, yeah, so much for the Scottish National Party. I mean, they're just anything but nationalists at this point. They're just complete blatant traitors who are basically overall part of the problem of trying to replace the overall population here in Scotland. So, and I think it's about time that people started waking up and seeing the problems we're facing just now.
That sounds very familiar, to be honest with you, especially with what we have here, Sinn Féin, which would be the legacy, supposedly the nationalistic, the Republican Party, which it's the exact same as what you've described. It's no
Gavin,
more that.
So if I can jump in there, I mean, you took the words out of my mouth there. I mean, that's so familiar. The Scottish National Party, a carbon copy of what we have here in Ireland with Sinn Féin, you know, and the modus operandi now is Brits out and the rest of the world in. And it's amazing as well, all these parties, how they try to distort reality. You know, it's like, oh yeah, if you come from Somalia, you can become Scottish, like, you know, legally or illegally. The same thing applies to us. Like they try to tell us, like, all these people that are coming from Africa and the Middle East, you know, oh, they're the new Irish or whatever. Absolutely absurd. The same thing in schools. They're trying to tell children they can change their genders, you know, and it's fine and it's okay and it's normalized, you know. So familiar tactics all over the Western civilizations by the looks of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just all like subversion. Sorry, just real quick. It's just all subversion tactics. It's trying to take everything that makes us who we are and just trying to subvert it. So when it comes to gender, they're like, well, what exactly is a man, or what is a woman, or what exactly is Scottish? You know, that sort of, or what is Irish or Welsh or etc. etc. It's all just part of the anti-white agenda. Even when it comes to the education system, they're trying to teach students. So, say for example, like non-white students, they're teaching them, "You're great people. Your people were oppressed in the past, and you should be proud of of who you are and your heritage, and so on and so forth." But if you're, say, in where I'm from, Scotland, if you're a Scottish student and you go into history or any subject in school, you're being taught to basically be ashamed of who you are, be ashamed of your past and your ancestry, because your people supposedly were oppressors in the past, your colonizers and all of that. So again, I do apologize if it sounds like I'm repeating myself here, but it's all part of the anti-white subversive tactics. It's trying to take everything that makes us who we are and just twisting it as best as they possibly can.
Yeah, it's just complete manipulation of the mind, because I know in Scotland as well, they're talking about Scottish independence, and but the same as what they're doing here. They want to talking about United Ireland. It's just nonsense, because all our policies are seem to be we're beholden to globalists, to the EU, to everyone else, because they keep saying we're obliged, we're obligated to take in these people, We have an obligation. This is the latest thing. You hear them in the Dáil in Ireland. They're obliged to. They've sort of signed us up to something, basically. And so we can't do nothing about it. It seems to be their shtick. Um, I, I don't know where to bring it forward that we could share some information. I suppose, Philip, you're getting great traction with the citizen journalism, and so is Derek. And I know that takes now get up and go and a bit of expense to get out around the place. But you're getting good traction on highlighting the issues, aren't you? Around, and it is getting people behind you.
It seems that way. It feels that way now that it's you know, you're getting recognized now on the street more. You're getting people coming up shaking your hand, which is always nice. And the nice part of it is it just encourages. It tells you that the message is getting out. And what we're trying to do is just well, what I'm trying to do. I'll speak for myself, and Derek as well able to speak for himself. But we're just trying to expose the madness and the injustice that's going on. And it's been thrown at you every day of the week practically. Like some absurdity turns up, and it's all geared towards destroying the Irish nation, the Irish people, and obviously the same for the lads in Wales and Scotland. And yeah, I mean, it's eventually, once you keep, like, if you consistently stick to facts and reality, you know, you can't go wrong. And I suppose it's the weapon that's going to win this war in the end is reality and facts and truth, you know, and that's what we have on our side. They can go on with all as much financial support, they can go on with as many NGOs and as many media organizations as they want, but eventually the truth will win out in the end. And I think it's starting to hit the psyche now, and it's obvious. You can see in the media now how terrified they are, and the hit pieces that's been done in the newspapers over the last few weeks. I mean, I think it's hilarious to me, you know, like the traction and the coverage, the exposure they've given, say, my channel and my YouTube channel, and other guys, and people like Gerald Murphy and Derek, and others, Satirical Soldier. They're giving us great publicity. You know, they're not as bright. I don't think they're as bright as we think they are. I know the people who are above, like the likes of Simon Coveney. We have a fella called David O'Donoghue, who's a guy that needs to be looked at and asked questions of. He's a senior civil servant in the Department of Foreign Affairs, and as far as I'm aware, he is the main author of Agenda 2030 for the UN. You know, like I said, the Irish have to be the best boys in the class when it comes to all of this globalism. You know, and this man, I'd love to meet the guy. I'd love to get him on camera. I'd love to ask him some questions. And he allegedly is the person most responsible and most highly regarded within the UN for his acumen and his writing skills, and he has authored this Agenda 2030 UN plan, as far as I'm aware. So I mean, another one, or Irish, well, I'll call him a traitor. You know, going abroad and aiding and abetting and helping orchestrating the destruction of his own country and, you know, other Western national nations, like, you know.
They're absolute sellouts, absolute sellout. But I think one of the good takeaways, though, from a lot of that media coverage during the week is that what I took away from it anyway, is that words are powerful. So that whole idea, the plantation, like you said, it was killing them. When I read that article, they're like, well, we don't want to give them publicity, but we have to address the stuff. So they're kind of, you can smell the panic off the article. But I think that one with the plantation issue that really gets to them, because obviously with Irish history, we have a history that, you know, we all learnt about the plantations in school with the, you know, the English came over, they planted Leash and Offaly, planted here, there, and everywhere. And that resonates with the Irish. We've all thought about in school, and that's terrifying the life out of them. And also this thing about that they are fighting aged men that's coming in. Some of those little whispers under the, I know, and it's kind of dirty warfare. Maybe it's like what do you call it, the Art of War or the Prince or something. But those little rumors going around, and like there's plenty to be afraid of. So it's not that you're not actually doing anything wrong, because it is. You should be worried about for your daughter and for your country. But I think for the lads, I think that the words that the framing, what they've been using against us in the media for years, the misinformation spreaders, if you flipping the narratives back on them, I think is really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want me to come in there?
Yeah, I just want to open it up because we've got another 15 minutes. Just get the lads, maybe they'll have some they can give some input on tips or some of the canvas for the BNP and the stuff like that. Welsh Nationalist, do you want to go first there? Just give us some, just some, give us some hope. Tell us what works and what doesn't work, and from your end
Well,
of things.
okay. Well, yeah, like the thing is, I don't know when to speak and when not to on you. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, it's basically like the thing is like when we're describing what's happening to our countries, it's like I don't mean to like make people feel depressed and like that we're finished, because we're not. You know, what they fear more than anything is the general public waking up. And this is why they call us Nazi and they call us racist and fascist and all the other stuff, right? Is because they want the normal people to be too scared to get involved. Because if everybody wakes up and everybody starts saying no to this, they'll have no choice but to act and reverse it. But while it's only small groups of people that they can just write off as conspiracy theorists and racists and fascists and all the rest of it, they're just going to carry on with it. But if everybody starts revolting, like I've been watching all the stuff you've been doing in Ireland, and what you're doing there is epic. We've had thousands of people on the streets in the past. We had like the BNP days, over 1 million people voted for the BNP, and like when UKIP were at their height, 4 million people voted for them. But because of the way that our voting system here is rigged, it's a two-party system. Only one of those two parties can get in. But the thing is, it doesn't matter about that. If like everyone I speak to, and people who haven't got a political bone in their body, they're saying, "What the hell's going on?" And then I'm explaining everything, and that's all we can really do is just keep on hammering the facts out there to people, because if everybody wakes up, this is why our government over here, they fear like the Muslim community, the black community, because if they're not happy with things, they're out on the streets in numbers, and the government will shit themselves, and the police shit themselves as well. And that's what we need to do. White people do not collectivize. We don't stick together. There's no community like there used to be years ago. So all we can do is keep waking people up. And people, I just say to people, join a party like PA if you want, but even if you don't, just start complaining to your MP, or emailing people, and just basically be kicking off and saying, no, we're not having this, because there's no coincidence that every one of these countries is experiencing exactly the same thing. They are out to destroy our countries and turn them into like nationalism is the enemy of globalism. The last thing they want is people being proud of their country and saying this is ours and it's just for us. That's the last thing they want. And that's why they want to water down our population so that you've got rootless people from all over the world and that. But like, it would be a simple matter if somebody got into power to just get to reverse it. And the police, they're just prostitutes. They do whatever they're told to do. I mean, if they went into work tomorrow, they go into work today and they're told to harass us, and they're told to enforce, people not allowed to say anything about transsexuals and that. If they went into work tomorrow and they were told, right, today we're deporting a load of Somalians, that's what they would do. They just do exactly what they're told to do. And, so like people should have hope. We just need to keep spreading the word, and we need to, share ideas between groups like ours, and we'll win in the end. I'm confident that we will win, because this plan is just so insidious and so evil that they can't be allowed to get away with it. They really can't.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, Joe, 100%. I'll give it to Chief Moody there if you wanted to make a few comments on it.
Yeah, well, I'll just be real quick in saying that I think it's about time we have men of action. I think it's come to the point now where it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and I think a lot of people are just getting really just sick and tired of it, and are desperately looking for a solution. They just cannot stand what's going on at the moment. So even if you're not exactly like political, or if you're not right part of a group or anything like that at all, just get active in any way, shape, or form. It could be either out in the out and about doing banner drops or leaflets or anything like that at all, or it could just be like behind the scenes stuff, and you could just like post, on any social media platform. Just do anything to point out what's going on regarding to the overall situation we're in. Because, like I said, like at this point in time, people are just getting really just fed up with that, and I think it's about time we start to maybe get more active instead of just keep constantly talking about the problem, as it were. You see.
I agree 100%, and kind of resonated with Joe was saying there about, we don't have the way that these people, they come in, they stick together, they form unions, or they're well able to fight for their own rights, and the indigenous people are allowing themselves to be walked all over and taken for a ride. What do you think, lads, on this question of like, see the way this battle is going on between Russia and Ukraine, and it's also though a battle between the kind of the East and the West. Do you think, if they get this multipolar world order, that would it actually benefit nationalists? Do you think if we could break, if that Western hegemony, American centric Western hegemony, kind of, maybe if they just retreated back into themselves for a couple of decades, do you think that might change things? What do you think, Philip, around that? Like this kind of battle between
Uh,
the East and the West.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not by any means an expert now on the Russian-Ukraine war. I've done a small bit of research, and I mean, it doesn't take much research to figure out that it's an absolute proxy war created by the Americans, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a guy there called is it Professor JJ Mersheimer in America, who's one of the top experts on that part of the world, and the political scenario that's been going on there for a number of years. But they've made a bogeyman out of Putin, as they do. Like the media machine has what you call it. It's completely demonized Putin and Russia to be the evil ones, and I suppose most people here in this chat obviously think the opposite is the case. He's not, or Russia is not the enemy here. Our enemy, as far as I'm concerned, is the American establishment. Call it the deep state if you want to, but it's like it's clear that this is a manufactured war, and look what it's doing. It's creating all this migration. I'm not fully on board with. I don't know enough about Putin. Something tells me I don't fully trust. I don't trust him. I just suspect he might be part of the game. Let's call it, and he's. I'd like to be wrong on that. But I mean, as regards Russia, um, then as a nationalist country, it seems to be a very proud nationalist country, and the people seem to be very proud nationalist people. So I don't know. I love the fact that Russia is an independent state and country, and I don't believe for a second that they just went in there and invaded Ukraine because they want to seize land, and become the next USSR, and they want to invade all their neighbors. I just don't believe that's the case. But it's definitely created to, I suppose, just cause more chaos. In the world, to keep everybody in fear. And it's keeping us on the edge of possible nuclear conflict as well. So yeah, do I want to see America go back for a couple of decades? Yeah, I'd love to see them go back. And I think the average American, I've been there a couple of times over the last few years now, and out of the cities into the kind of the real rural America. And most of the people there are wonderful people, and the areas I went to, most of them were Trump supporters, and it's not so much they just love America. They love the Constitution. They love this kind of the land of freedom and entrepreneurialism, and they love their gun rights and their Second Amendment, their First Amendment, and to me that sums up the vast majority of American people. They're not interested in this deep state that's going around waging these wars all over the place. And we can talk about the JQ all night, and their influence in what's going on. I have my own opinions on that, but I'm looking into it more and more, and it becoming quite obvious that there's a disproportionate amount of people from the certain religious sect that are involved in making powerful decisions in the world today. So that might get me into trouble now, that little statement, but that's what it is. So yeah, I would like to see them retreat back for a couple of decades, probably forever. But anyway,
I think I don't know. I think maybe that's what's needed with the whole thing that's going on. Maybe we'll let the lads respond there. Welsh Nationalists, do you want to come in on the Russian question?
Well, my theory on it is that as part of this Agenda 2030 thing, is they would like nothing more than to start World War III. And the thing is like we can't afford a European war, because what will happen is millions of white people will kill each other, just like they did in the last wars. And then our replacements are here. They're sat in hotels, just waiting. When millions of us have killed each other over nothing, over a war they've started, and like you can't believe a word that you see or hear when they're telling you about the reasons for this war or what's happening here. It's just all theatre, and it's all bullshit. And we've had the head of the British Army saying, well, British people might need to realise that they may soon have to send their children and grandchildren to war. No, we won't. We're not doing that. Like when I left school, all I wanted to do all through when I was a child, I wanted to join the army, and they wouldn't let me when I left school because I was colorblind, right? And like I wanted nothing else than to fight for my country at that time. But like I know I'm older now, but I would never do it now, and I would never encourage anyone else to do it, because they just want to send people to their deaths in pointless wars. Look at all the wars in the Middle East and that. They want this to escalate, and we can't allow it to, because it'll be the end of us. If we have a European war and we have French people, German people, it won't be all these immigrants fighting. It'll be the indigenous people of these countries all killing each other for nothing, And then when the smoke clears, all our replacements will just take over, and they'll just be. The thing is the reason why they want Europe to be filled with third worlders is because when they're rootless, they won't be nationalistic in any way at all, because it's not their countries. And they'll just be so much more easily controlled by the elites than we would be, because we white people are naturally rebellious. We will, it's like this 20-minute zone thing, and that there's a big protest in Oxford in February. That's February the 18th, when they're trying to zone these cities off and make us prisoners and that. We're not having that. This is mostly white people who resist this. So if they can get rid of us in a world war, they will do, and we can't allow it to happen, because then we will be, if a few million of us get wiped out, that's the end of us.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I just, when we were talking there as well, it popped into my head, like all those Syrians that came across Europe during the Syrian war, like that was America's fault. They went in, they removed Saddam Hussein, they left it a shit basket, fucking shithole, and all those millions of people trudged across Europe because of the Americans. Now we've got a war in the Ukraine, and we've got millions of people flooding out Ukraine, all because American, this, a deep state hand. Chief Moody, do you want to come in on the Russian thing?
Yeah, well, I'll just say quite briefly is that I'm not on either side. I'm not pro-Ukraine or anti-Ukraine or pro-Russia or anti-Russia. I will definitely say, and I do agree with Philip what he said earlier on, that it's basically just another proxy war. It's to me, it's quite similar to what happened in the past with previous wars like the Iraq War or the Afghanistan War. It's basically the West going into countries that we have no business being there and trying to make up some kind of BS excuse of, oh, well, there's either weapons of mass destruction or we're trying to implement democracy in those regions. When in reality, we're basically trying to do everything we can to change those countries for our benefit. But when I say our benefit, I mean the people from other countries benefit, that sort of idea. And not when it comes to the idea of wanting to implement democracy, it's really just a code word for implementing degeneracy. I've seen what's been going on with the whole Ukraine and Russia situation. I do believe that the West are trying to do everything they can to poke the Russian bear when it comes to that. Again, trying to implement all kinds of degenerate values, and of course, Russia, and more specifically Vladimir Putin, completely just rejects that. Now, again, I'm not necessarily a fan of Putin or like against Putin. There's some aspect of Putin I do agree with, and some I don't. At least when it comes to Russia and Vladimir Putin, say what you want about him, at least he wants to, in some way, implement more traditional values when it comes to the Russian people, whether it be a strong family unit or, again, going back to gender norms like male and female and all of that, like just completely rejecting what the West are trying to promote. Especially, if I can mention this real quick, what we're seeing with the World Cup as of late in Qatar. Qatar is again a very like traditional type of country, but again, the West are just trying to implement all kinds of degeneracy, like the LGBT, whatever alphabetical letter there is now at this point, that type of agenda, and you're talking about like homosexuals are being executed in Qatar and all this and that. It's just like, well, look, I mean, to stop trying to implement your degeneracy in these countries. It's not making the situation any better. It's just making things worse. But of course, we all know why they're doing that. It's just all part of the overall agenda to try and, I don't want to say destabilize the countries, but just trying to change the countries as best as they possibly can at this point. But that's all I'll say on that point when it comes to that.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So we're near time. Maybe I don't know. We could discuss here in Ireland the biggest. Well, one of the there's that many problems going on now. I don't say the biggest problem, but we have a big one here with the freedom of speech that they're coming after our right to freedom of expression and speech. And then we had our I don't know what you'd call him, our Taoiseach or our Taoiseach or whatever he is. He's a homosexual, and basically he was having a big deep kiss, which was fairly revolting in a nightclub there last week. It went viral, and now they're trying to use that should you have the right to privacy and not to be filmed in a public place. So this is what's happening here. I don't know. Is it what they're trying to spin that off? Do they not want us filming the guards, or are they trying to protect themselves, or whatever? But it just seems to go from one thing to the next. Do you want to comment on that, Philip?
Oh God, even the thoughts of it, like with that video, I've got so many conflicting views on it, but part of me thinks it was staged. That Varadkar is looking for a way out of this, debacle. He probably knows that the end is near, and they're going to be exposed for all the wrongdoing that they've done over the last number of years. I could be wrong. Maybe I'd love to know how his partner Matthew Barrett feels after they're advertising on the newspapers that they've spent €800,000 on their new house out the South Circular Road there, and this comes up online. But again, to me, it's just total degeneracy. Like, obviously, Varadkar knows he's the Taoiseach of the country. He goes to a nightclub and he starts kissing the face off some young fella. He's expecting privacy for that. And again, is it at the throes of a dying animal with this hate speech stuff as well? I mean, it's like desperation, like to stop people from expressing their point of view by threatening them with jail, protecting all these minorities, protecting everybody except the Irish people, and especially Irish men. I don't even want to use color in this because I don't even understand what that is. But yeah, it's absurd. It's just more absurdity, as far as I'm concerned. And like, is it going to help people, waking them up? I don't know. I hope it does, and you can see with your own eyes now what we voted in to this country and who are making all these crucial decisions about our future. And look, it's there for everybody to see. Do we wake up to it or not? That's another question. But hopefully people will. He's just not. He's not the type of person now I want to go and have a pint with. Anyway, I can tell you that. But anyway,
You wouldn't be drinking in the same in around the same bars for the parent like that, would you?
I don't imagine. I don't imagine I'd be allowed in the door. I'd say there's, the security staff have pictures of me saying, "Do not let this guy in here." But anyway, they won't need to stop me going in anyway, unless I do some undercover story.
It's such a farce. It's such a farce altogether.
Yeah.
Sure. Look, we could wrap it up at that. Thanks a million, lads, for coming on. You can hang around for a few minutes if you want after. We'll just knock off the recording and we'll open up the mics. But thanks a million, Welsh Nationalist and Chief Moody. And I hope everyone goes over there and joins onto your channels and that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Can I just say that anyone who's around tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, Cookstown Industrial Estate, there, our people trafficking centre, that's an office block that's been set up. We're going to protest there, so I'll be there. If I'm on my own, I'm on my own. If I'm not, well and good. I hope people will join me, and just to speak out about this and maybe come to some kind of what would you call it? Come to some kind of plan that we can make to make a protest against this and make a stand against this. It has to stop.
Definitely. We need to keep the momentum on what's going on in East Wall as well, because it'd be great to see it like up and down the country, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Can I say two things, if that's okay, Gavin?
Suppose, Mike, suppose. Go on there.
You're a lovely man. Well, the first thing is in relation to Philip, and I think the amount of work he's been doing, Jesus, for 2-3 years now at this stage is unbelievable. It's monumental, and what he's been doing for the last while for us here in Ireland is keeping us in the loop of the absolute madness that's taking place in the country. And if it wasn't for Philip, I wouldn't know half the shit that I need to know today. But there's one thing I do have to say, lads, in all fairness. Leo isn't that bad of a kisser, boys. As Indians go, that's not the worst kiss I've ever seen. I leave it at that.
Thanks a million, Mike. Now you're making me leave the chat here now. I'm blushing. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon.
Great time for you, my friend, and the lads as well. Fair play to everyone listening. Fair play to everybody participating. Freedom is the way forward. And you know something? The quicker the civil war, the better.
This is it. Thanks, Welsh Nationalist, and thanks, Chief Moody, as well. You're great to have you.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
thanks for having us.
It's a million, lads. I hope you'll come back in the future sometime, maybe sometime after Christmas. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the chat. Thank you.
Thanks very much.